The two Krell destroyers moved toward the Defiant Hope with murder in their hearts. They had watched 3 frigates die in seconds, and now they wanted revenge. Their plasma cannons glowed hot as they prepared to unleash everything they had. Captain Park Gina watched them come. Her ship was damaged, but still fighting. The armor had done its job, but several outer sections were badly scorched. Warning lights blinked across multiple stations on the bridge. Status report. She ordered. Commander Lee Taiho checked his displays. Hull integrity at 82%. Primary weapons are operational. Missile stocks at 60%. Point defense systems are running hot but functional. Chief Dawn, how are the engines? The engineer's voice came through the intercom, strained with effort. Holding together, Captain. But that long run to get here cost us. Reactor efficiency is down to 70%. We have power, but not as much as I would like. Gina nodded slowly. They were hurt, but they were not finished. Lieutenant Kim, target the lead destroyer. Fire when ready. Una's hands moved across her console. The railguns hummed with power. Targeting the destroyer on the right. Firing now. Tungsten rounds screamed through the void. The Krell destroyer tried to dodge, but human railguns were incredibly fast. 2 rounds hit the front of the ship, punching deep holes in its hull. A 3rd round struck the bridge section, killing the captain and most of the command crew, but the ship did not die. Krell vessels were tough in their own way, built for brutal combat. The destroyer kept coming, its guns blazing. Incoming fire. Myray shouted that the Defiant Hope shuddered as plasma bolts hammered into its hull. This time the damage was worse. An explosion rocked the ship, throwing crew members to the floor. Report. Gina gripped her chair as the deck tilted. All breach on deck 4. Taiho's voice was sharp. Emergency bulkheads are sealing. 2 crew members injured, no deaths. Keep firing. Do not let them breathe. The battle became a violent dance of fire and metal. The human ship and the 2 destroyers circled each other, trading shots at close range. The Defiant Hope was smaller and faster, using its speed to stay out of the worst firing arcs. But the destroyers were working together, trying to trap the human vessel between them. Una fired another missile volley at the damaged destroyer. The missile spiraled through space, dodging point defense fire. 4 of them got through. The destroyer's engine section exploded in a massive fireball. The ship broke in half and began to drift apart. 1 destroyer down, Una reported with grim satisfaction. 1 more to go, Gina said. Where is the last destroyer? Coming around behind us. They are trying to hit our engines. Helm, hard turn to port. Show them our strongest armor. The Defiant Hope spun in space, presenting its heavily armored bow to the attacking destroyer. The Krell ship opened fire, but the shots glanced off the thick plating at the front of the human vessel. Now, Lieutenant, give them everything. Una unleashed another railgun barrage. At this range, even the destroyer's armor could not stop the tungsten rounds. They tore through the hull like knives through flesh. Secondary explosions rippled across the Krell ship as ammunition stores and fuel tanks ignited. The destroyer died screaming, its hull collapsing inward as fires consumed it from within. On the bridge of his command ship, Warlord Grath stared at the destruction with disbelief. 5 of his ships were gone. 3 frigates and 2 destroyers, all killed by 1 human vessel. This was not possible. This could not be happening. Warlord, his first officer said nervously, perhaps we should withdraw. We can return with more ships. Silence. Grath roared. He grabbed the officer by the throat and lifted him off the deck. I do not retreat. I do not run, especially not from 1 pathetic human ship. He threw the officer aside and turned to his crew. Bring us in. We will destroy them ourselves. The command ship was the largest vessel in the Krell fleet. It had weapons that could crack planets and armor that could withstand nuclear strikes. It was Grath's pride, his instrument of terror. He had never lost a fight, and this ship today would not be the first. The command ship moved forward, its massive guns powering up. Plasma cannons, energy beams, missile launchers, all of them pointed at the wounded Defiant Hope. "Captain," Murray's voice was quiet. "The command ship is engaging." Gina looked at the tactical display. The command ship was 3 times the size of her destroyer. It had more weapons, more armor, more everything. Fighting it head-on would be suicide. But she had not come here to lose. "Chief Dunn," she said into the intercom, "I need more power to the engines. Can you give me full speed?" "Full speed?" The engineer sounded worried. "Captain, the reactor is already stressed. If I push harder, we risk a core failure. We are about to be shot by a ship that outguns us 10-1. I will take reactor failure over plasma cannons." There was a pause. "Understood, Captain. Giving you everything we have. But this is going to hurt." The engines roared with new power. The Defiant Hope leaped forward, accelerating toward the command ship instead of away from it. Grath laughed when he saw the human ship charging at him. "They are attacking? Fools, open fire." The command ship's weapons spoke with thunder and lightning. Plasma bolts as big as ground cars streaked toward the Defiant Hope. Energy beams sliced through space. Missiles launched in swarms. The human ship flew through the storm. Point defense guns shot down missiles by the dozens. The armor absorbed plasma strikes that would have destroyed any other vessel. Energy beams scored deep burns across the hull, but they did not break through. The Defiant Hope kept coming. "Impossible," Grath whispered. The human ship passed under the command ship's bow, so close that the 2 vessels nearly touched. At this range, the command ship's big guns could not target them. They were too close, in a blind spot that the Krell designers had never considered. Humans fought differently than other species. They did not keep their distance and trade shots. They got close. They got personal. They fought like their ancestors had fought, with swords and spears, face to face, blood to blood. "Fire everything into their belly," Gina ordered. Yuna obeyed with fierce joy. Railguns punched holes in the command ship's underbelly. Missiles flew into the gaps, detonating inside the hull. Point defense guns, designed to shoot down missiles, tore through armor plating at point-blank range. The command ship shuddered. Explosions ripped through its lower decks. Fire spread through crew quarters and ammunition storage. Krell sailors screamed as they died, but the ship was huge and it was not finished. Grath's crew fought back, using close-range weapons that were meant for boarding actions. Energy blasts scorched the Defiant Hope's already damaged hull. A lucky shot hit the sensor array, blinding the ship's long-range detection systems. "We lost sensors," Murray shouted. "Flying blind." "Visual targeting," Yuna replied. "Old school, like our grandparents." She aimed through the viewport, finding her targets by eye. Her shots were not as accurate, but at this range, accuracy did not matter. Everything she fired hit something important. The Defiant Hope circled the command ship like a wolf harrying a wounded bear. Again and again, it struck, tearing new holes in the larger vessel's hull. The command ship tried to turn, tried to bring its main guns to bear, but the human ship was too fast, too close. Admiral Velthos watched the battle from his crippled cruiser. He had never seen anything like this. One human ship was killing a Krell command vessel through pure aggression and courage. The Rillian way was peace and diplomacy. They did not fight like this. They could not fight like this, but humans could. Humans did. Finally, the killing blow came. Yuna found the command ship's reactor through a gap in the armor. She fired 3 railgun rounds directly into it. The command ship exploded. The blast lit up the system like a new sun. The Defiant Hope was thrown backward by the shockwave, tumbling end over end. Emergency systems struggled to stabilize the ship. Crew members were thrown from their stations. Lights flickered and alarms screamed. When the shaking stopped, Gina pulled herself back into her chair. Blood dripped from a cut on her forehead. Damage report. Taiho was on the floor, coughing from the smoke that filled the bridge. Engines are offline. Hull integrity at 53%. Multiple fires throughout the ship. We are alive, but we cannot run. What about the Krell? My ray checked her console. It was cracked, but still working. The command ship is destroyed. The disabled frigate from earlier is retreating at low speed. We won, Captain. We won. Gina slumped back in her chair. They had won. Against all odds, against all reason, they had won. But at what cost? Her ship was crippled, her crew was wounded, and they were stranded in hostile space. Still, 2,000 refugees were alive because of what they had done. For now, that was enough. The silence after the battle was almost worse than the fighting itself. The Defiant Hope drifted through space, surrounded by the wreckage of Krell warships. Fires still burned inside the human vessel, and smoke filled the corridors. The ship was alive, but barely. Captain Park Gita sat in her command chair, pressing a cloth against the cut on her forehead. The bleeding had slowed, but her head was pounding. Around her, the bridge crew worked to restore basic systems. Sparks flew from damaged consoles, and the lights flickered every few seconds. Engineering report, Gina said into the intercom. Chief Dohan's voice came back, rough and exhausted. Captain, the engines are dead. The reactor pushed too hard during the fight. It will take at least 8 hours to repair, maybe more. We have emergency power only. Life support? Working, but not great. Some sections of the ship have no air circulation. I had to seal them off. Casualties? There was a pause. 17 wounded. 3 dead. Ensign Park Ga, Petty Officer Kwan Min-sik, and Technician Yoon Daeun. They were in Section 7 when it took a direct hit. Gina closed her eyes. 3 of her people were gone. 3 families would receive messages telling them that their loved ones were not coming home. She had known this might happen when she gave the order to fight. She had accepted that risk. But accepting it did not make it easier. Make sure their bodies are treated with respect, she said quietly. We will honor them properly when we get home. Yes, Captain. Commander Taiho approached her chair. He had a burn on his left arm, but he was ignoring it. Captain, the Rillian cruiser is hailing us. Admiral Velthos wants to come aboard. Tell him he is welcome. We could use the help. 20 minutes later, a small shuttle docked with the Defiant Hope. Admiral Velthos and a team of Rillian engineers came aboard, bringing medical supplies and repair equipment. The Admiral walked through the damaged corridors with wide eyes, seeing the destruction up close. When he reached the bridge, he found Captain Gina still in her chair, refusing to leave her post. He stopped in front of her and bowed deeply, a gesture of profound respect in Rillian culture. Captain Park, he said, his voice thick with emotion, I do not have words for what you have done. You came when no one else would come. You fought when no one else would fight. You saved 2,000 lives today. Gina stood up slowly, wincing at the pain in her ribs. We did what was right, Admiral. Nothing more. Nothing more? Velthos shook his head. Captain, I have sent distress calls before. Do you know how many responses we usually receive? None. The galaxy hears our cries and does nothing. We are too weak to matter, too peaceful to be worth saving. But you came. 1 ship against 6, and you came. He reached into his uniform and pulled out a small medal, shaped like a silver star with blue gems at each point. This is the Rillian Star of Valor. It is the highest honor our people can give. No outsider has ever received it before. Until now. He pressed the medal into Gina's hand. She looked at it, surprised by its weight. Admiral, I cannot accept this. I was just doing my job. Then your job is extraordinary. Valtho smiled, his large dark eyes shining with tears. My people will not forget this day, Captain. As long as Rillians exist, we will remember what humans did for us. While Gina spoke with the Admiral, another visitor came aboard. Ambassador Kesara of the Torvan Confederation had been traveling on the refugee transport. The Torvans were a neutral species, observers who watched galactic events without taking sides. They were known for their fairness and their influence in the Galactic Council. Kesara was tall and slender, with skin that shifted colors depending on her mood. Right now it was a deep purple, indicating strong emotions. She walked onto the bridge and looked around at the damage, at the exhausted crew, at the captain standing with blood still on her face. I have been watching this battle from the transport, Kesara said. Her voice was soft but carried across the bridge. I recorded everything. My report will go directly to the Galactic Council. Taiho looked at her with suspicion. What will your report say? The truth. Kesara's skin shifted to a lighter shade. That a human warship responded to a distress call from strangers. That it fought against impossible odds to protect innocent lives. That humans are not the primitive newcomers the galaxy believes them to be. She turned to face Gina directly. Captain, I have lived for 300 years. I have seen empires rise and fall. I have watched species destroy each other over land and resources and pride. But I have rarely seen what I saw today. Courage without selfishness. Sacrifice without expectation of reward. You could have died. Your whole crew could have died. Why did you come? Gina thought about the question. Why had she come? The odds had been against her. The smart choice would have been to report and wait. No one would have blamed her for being cautious, but being cautious meant letting innocent people die. Ambassador, she said slowly, where I come from, there is an old saying. The only thing necessary for evil to win is for good people to do nothing. I could not do nothing. My crew could not do nothing. So we did something. Kesara's skin turned a warm gold color. A simple answer. Perhaps simplicity is what the galaxy needs. The Rillian engineers worked alongside the human crew to repair the worst damage. They were not familiar with human technology, but they learned quickly. Chief Dohan directed them with gruff efficiency. Grateful for the extra hands dot in the medical bay, Rillian doctors helped treat the wounded. Their medicine was different from human medicine, but some things were universal. Bandages, painkillers, the gentle touch of someone who wanted to help. Lieutenant Kim Yuna sat on a bed, getting her arm wrapped. A piece of metal had cut her during the battle, and she had ignored it until now. The Rillian doctor treating her clicked his tongue in disapproval. You should have come sooner, he said. This cut is deep. Yuna shrugged. I was busy destroying warships, yes. The doctor smiled slightly. You humans are strange. You damage yourself so easily, but you fight so hard. How do you do it? Yuna thought about the question. We do not have a choice. When someone needs help, we help. When someone threatens our friends, we fight. It is just who we are. Perhaps that is why you survived, the doctor said softly. You fight not for glory or conquest, but for others. That is a powerful reason to live. Hours passed. The repairs continued. The crew rested when they could, sleeping in shifts while others worked. The dead were prepared for transport home. The wounded were stabilized. Slowly, the Defiant Hope came back to life. Ensign Han Mei worked at her damaged console, trying to restore long-range communications. Her hands were blistered from electrical burns, but she kept working. Finally, the console beeped with a successful connection. "Captain," she called out, "I have contact with Fleet Command." Gina hurried over. "Put them through." A familiar face appeared on the screen. Admiral Song Hyun-soo, commander of the Outer Rim Fleet, looked at them with a mixture of relief and concern. "Captain Park, we received your distress beacon. What is your status?" Gina gave him a quick summary of the battle and its aftermath. The Admiral listened without interrupting. When she finished, his expression was grave. "You engaged a Krell battle group with one destroyer. That was either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid." "Probably both, sir." The Admiral almost smiled. "Reinforcements are on the way. 12 ships will reach your position in 6 hours. Can you hold until then?" "Yes, sir." "The Krell threat has been eliminated. We are just very tired. Rest while you can, Captain. You have earned it." The Admiral paused. "And Park? Well done. You did the Navy proud today." The screen went dark. Gina let out a long breath. Help was coming. They would survive, but then Marie's console lit up with new warnings. "Captain," the ensign said, her voice suddenly tight with fear, "I am detecting a new contact. Something big just dropped out of faster-than-light travel." Gina felt her heart sink. "What is it?" Marie's face went pale. "A Krell dreadnought. The biggest ship in their fleet. Someone called for reinforcements before we won. Outside the viewport, a massive shadow blocked the stars. The Krell dreadnought was enormous, larger than anything the Defiant Hope had ever faced. It moved toward them slowly, like a predator approaching wounded prey. The battle was not over. The Krell dreadnought filled the viewport like a metal mountain. It was 5 times the size of the Defiant Hope, bristling with weapons that could tear apart a fleet. Its hull was scarred from countless battles, each mark a testament to its deadly history. This was a ship built for one purpose: total destruction. Captain Park Gina stood on her damaged bridge and faced the monster before her. Her ship could barely move. Her weapons were running low. Her crew was exhausted and wounded. Against the dreadnought, they had no chance at all. But she did not show fear. A captain could not show fear. "Open a channel," she ordered. Ensign Han Mireille nodded, her hand shaking slightly as she worked the console. "Channel open, Captain." A face appeared on the screen. It belonged to Supreme Commander Zorthan, one of the highest-ranking officers in the Krell military. He was older than Grath had been, with white scars crossing his gray face and cold, calculating eyes. This was not a warrior who fought for pleasure. This was a warrior who fought to win. "Human Captain," Zorthan said, his voice deep and rumbling. "You destroyed Warlord Grath and his battle group. This was unexpected. I did not think humans capable of such fighting." "We are full of surprises," Gina replied calmly. "So it seems." Zorthan leaned forward slightly. "I am not Grath. I do not underestimate my enemies. I see your ship is damaged. Your engines are dead. You cannot run, and you cannot fight. You have 2 choices. Surrender, and I will make your deaths quick. Resist, and I will make them slow." Gina looked at her crew. Taiho stood at his station, hand resting on his sidearm. Yuna sat at the weapons console, ready to fire with whatever they had left. Mireille watched her with young, trusting eyes. Chief Dohan's voice came through the intercom, quiet but steady. "Still here, Captain. Whatever you decide." These were her people. They had followed her into this battle, and they would follow her to the end. Gina turned back to the screen. "Supreme Commander, I have a counteroffer. Leave now, and you will live to fight another day. Stay, and you will die with your ship." Zorthan stared at her for a long moment. Then, To her surprise, he laughed. It was not the cruel laugh of Grath. It was the honest laugh of someone who had heard a good joke. You have spirit, human. I almost wish we could have met as allies instead of enemies. But wishes do not change reality. His expression hardened. Prepare to die with honor. The screen went dark. He is powering weapons, Myre reported. 30 seconds until firing range. Admiral Velthos appeared beside Gina. He had stayed aboard during the repairs, helping where he could. Now he looked at her with desperate eyes. Captain, let me draw his fire. The Silver Dawn can still move. We can buy time for the transport to escape. No, Gina shook her head. Your ship is too damaged. You would not last a minute. Then what do we do? Gina did not have an answer. For the first time since the battle began, she felt truly helpless. They had fought so hard, sacrificed so much, and now it would all end here. The dreadnought would destroy them, then the Rillian ships, then the transport with its 2,000 refugees. Everything they had done would be for nothing. Captain! Myre suddenly shouted, her voice rising with shock and hope. I am detecting multiple contacts. They just dropped out of faster-than-light travel. They are behind us. Gina spun around. Identify. Myre's face broke into the widest smile Gina had ever seen. Human ships, Captain. 12 of them. The Iron Will, the Dawn's Light, the Steadfast, and 9 more. The relief fleet is here. On the main screen, new images appeared. A wall of human warships emerged from the darkness, their running lights blazing like stars. They formed a battle line between the Defiant Hope and the Krell Dreadnought. Destroyers, cruisers, and one mighty battleship, the Unconquered, flagship of the Outer Rim Fleet. A new voice came through the communications system. This is Captain Rusagin of the Unconquered. Supreme Commander Zorthan, this convoy is under the protection of the human space navy. You are outnumbered and outgunned. Leave now, or we will send you to join your warlord. Zorthan's face appeared on screen again. His expression had changed. The cold calculation was still there, but now it was mixed with something else. Not fear exactly, respect. 12 ships, he said slowly. Your people move fast. When our friends need help, we do not waste time. Captain Rue's voice was hard as iron. Friends. Zorthan looked past the fleet to the crippled Defiant Hope. One ship came to save strangers it had never met. One ship fought my entire battle group. And now 12 more come to save that one ship. He shook his head slowly. Humans are strange creatures. We are family, Rue replied simply. We do not abandon our own. A long silence stretched between the two fleets. The Dreadnought's weapons were still powered, ready to fire. The human ships held position, equally ready. One wrong move and the battle would begin. Then Zorthan did something no one expected. He laughed again, but this time it was quieter, almost thoughtful. The Krell have fought many species, he said. We have conquered worlds and destroyed civilizations. We do this because we are strong and others are weak. That is the way of the galaxy. He paused. But you humans, you are not weak. And you do not fight like others fight. You fight for each other. You fight for strangers. You fight even when you cannot win. He leaned back in his chair. Today I learned something new. Today I learned that humans are not prey. They are predators. Perhaps the most dangerous predators in the galaxy. The Dreadnought's weapons powered down. We will leave, Zorthan announced. Not because we fear you, but because destroying you would cost more than it is worth. The Krell will remember this day. We will remember what one human ship did to Grath's battle group. And we will think carefully before attacking your kind again. The Dreadnought turned slowly, its massive bulk rotating away from the human fleet. Within minutes, it jumped to faster-than-light travel and vanished into the darkness. The bridge of the Defiant Hope erupted in cheers. Crew members hugged each other, laughing and crying with relief. Even Commander Taiho allowed himself a small smile. Captain Gina slumped into her chair, finally letting the exhaustion wash over her. They had done it. Against all odds, they had survived. Admiral Velthos knelt beside her chair. Tears streamed down his blue face. "Captain Park, you saved us. You saved all of us." "We saved each other," Gina replied softly. "That is what allies do." Ambassador Kasara approached as well. Her skin was a bright gold, the color of joy. "I will tell the Galactic Council what happened here. The galaxy will know that when humans make a promise to protect someone, they keep it. This will change everything." In the hours that followed, the human fleet secured the area. Medical ships arrived to treat the wounded. Engineers began towing the Defiant Hope back to port for repairs. The refugee transport continued its journey to safety, escorted by 3 human destroyers. Captain Gina finally allowed herself to be taken to the medical bay. As she lay on the bed, getting her wounds properly treated, Admiral Song Hyun-soo visited her personally. "You did something remarkable today," he said, standing beside her bed. "You showed the galaxy what humanity stands for. Not conquest, not domination, but protection, compassion, the willingness to fight for others." "I just did what was right," Gina replied, "and that is exactly why it matters." The Admiral smiled. "The Rillians have requested a formal alliance with humanity. The Torvins want diplomatic talks. 3 other species have already sent messages asking about trade agreements." "One battle, Captain. One battle changed everything." Gina thought about her 3 crew members who had died. She thought about all the people who had fought and bled and suffered. She thought about the 2,000 refugees who were now safe because of their sacrifice. "Then it was worth it," she said quietly. 1 week later, the Defiant Hope limped into port. The hull was scarred and burned, the armor dented and torn. But the ship was still whole, still alive, still unbroken. Waiting on the dock were thousands of people. Humans who had heard the story. Rillians who had traveled to say thank you. Representatives from a dozen species who wanted to see the ship that had challenged a Crow. Battle Group and 1 Dot. As Captain Gina walked down the ramp, the crowd began to cheer. Not just for her, but for her entire crew. For the ship. For what they represented. Humanity had announced itself to the galaxy. Not with threats or demands, but with sacrifice and courage. They had shown that they were worth knowing, worth respecting, worth calling friends. And somewhere in the vast darkness of space, other species watched and listened and learned. They learned that when humans said they would protect you, they meant it. They learned that humans did not abandon those in need. They learned that humanity had arrived, and the galaxy would never be the same. A Defiant Hope moved through the darkness of space like a silent hunter. The human warship was far from home, patrolling the outer edges of human territory where few ships traveled. Captain Park Gina stood on the bridge, watching the endless stars through the main viewport. It had been a quiet week with nothing to report. Gina was a woman of 42 years with short black hair and tired eyes. She had served in the Human Space Navy for 20 years and commanded the Defiant Hope for the last 3. Her crew respected her because she never asked them to do anything she would not do herself. She was strict but fair, and she cared about every person under her command. The bridge was quiet except for the soft hum of machines. Commander Lee Taiho sat at the tactical station, reviewing patrol reports. He was the first officer, a tall man with a calm face and sharp mind. He had served with Gina for 5 years and knew her better than anyone on the ship. Lieutenant Kim Yuna worked at the weapons console, running system checks for the 3rd time that day. She was young, only 28, but she was one of the best weapons officers in the fleet. Her hands were always steady, even in the worst situations. Ensign Han Murray sat at the communication station, listening to the empty channels. She was the newest member of the bridge crew, fresh from the academy. Her job was to monitor all signals in the area and report anything unusual. The day had been boring. Patrol duty in the Outer Rim was usually boring. Most crews complained about it, but Gina did not mind. Boring meant safe. Boring meant her people would go home to their families. Then everything changed. A sharp sound came from Murray's console. She sat up straight, her fingers moving quickly across the controls. Her young face became serious as she listened to something in her earpiece. "Captain," Murray said, her voice tight with concern, "I am receiving a distress signal. It is encrypted, but I can read it. The signal is from a Rillian convoy in the Vexa system." Gina turned to face her. "What does the message say?" Murray listened for a moment longer. "They are under attack. Krell raiders hit them 30 minutes ago. They are asking for any ships in the area to assist." The bridge fell silent. Everyone knew what this meant. The Rillians were a peaceful species who had recently signed a trade agreement with humanity. They were good people, gentle and kind. They had no real military because they believed in solving problems through talk, not violence. The Krell were the opposite. They were raiders and conquerors who took what they wanted and destroyed what they did not need. Commander Taiho pulled up the star charts on his screen. The Vexa system is 4 hours away at maximum speed. That puts it just outside our patrol zone. "How many ships in the convoy?" Gina asked. Murray checked her data. 6 ships, Captain. 1 cruiser, 2 transports, and 3 cargo vessels. The distress signal says they are carrying refugees from the Krell border regions. Gina closed her eyes for a moment. Refugees. Innocent people running from war and death. Now the war had caught up with them. "Do we have information on the attacking force?" Taiho asked. Murray nodded slowly. "The signal mentions multiple Krell warships. At least 6, possibly more." Taiho turned to look at the captain. His face was calm, but Gina could see the concern in his eyes. "Captain, 6 Krell warships against 1 human destroyer. The numbers are not in our favor." "I know," Gina said quietly. "Standard procedure says we should report this to command and wait for reinforcements," Taiho continued. "A proper response fleet could reach the system in 12 hours. Gina walked slowly across the bridge. Every member of the crew watched her, waiting to see what she would decide. She stopped at the main viewport and looked out at the stars. "In 12 hours, she said softly. "How many of those refugees will still be alive?" Nobody answered. They all knew the truth. The Krell did not take prisoners. They did not show mercy. In 12 hours, the convoy would be destroyed, and everyone on board would be dead. Murray's console made another sound. "Captain, I am receiving updates from the distress signal. 2 of the cargo ships have already been destroyed. The Rillian cruiser is trying to protect the others, but they are taking heavy damage." Gina turned around to face her crew. Her decision was made. "Set a course for the Vexa system," she ordered. "Maximum speed." Taiho stood up from his chair. "Captain, are you certain?" "1 ship against 6 is—" "I know what the odds are, Commander," Gina said firmly. "But I also know that people are dying right now. People who called for help. If we do not answer, then what are we? What is the point of having a navy if we only use it when it is safe?" The bridge was silent for a long moment. Then Taiho nodded slowly. "Understood, Captain. I will inform the crew." Chief Engineer Choi Dawn's voice came through the intercom. He was an older man with gray hair and thick hands that had fixed 1,000 broken machines. "Bridge, this is engineering. I heard we are going somewhere in a hurry. What do you need from me? Everything you have, Chief, Gina replied. Push the engines as hard as they can go. We need to reach the Vex system in 4 hours or less. 4 hours? Dawn sounded surprised. That will put stress on the reactor core. Can you do it? There was a pause. I can do it. But if we fight after running that hard, we will not have much reserve power. Noted. Do it anyway. The ship shuddered slightly as the engines powered up to maximum. The stars outside the viewport stretched into lines of light as the Defiant Hope jumped to faster-than-light speed. They were committed now. There was no turning back. Gina sat down in her command chair and looked at the faces of her crew. They were scared. She could see it in their eyes. But they were also determined. They had joined the Navy to protect people, and today they would do exactly that. Lieutenant Kim, Gina said, begin preparing all weapons systems. I want everything ready to fire the moment we arrive. Yuna nodded sharply. Yes, Captain. Railguns, missiles, and point defense systems will all be online. Ensign Han, keep monitoring that distress signal. I want to know the moment anything changes. Yes, yes. Captain, Taiho sat back down at his station and began reviewing tactical data on the Krell. He pulled up everything they knew about Krell warships, their weapons, their tactics, and their weaknesses. If they were going to fight, they needed to fight smart. 3 hours passed slowly. The crew prepared for battle in their own ways. Some checked their equipment again and again. Some wrote messages to their families, just in case. Some sat quietly and thought about what was coming. Marie's console lit up with new information. Her face went pale as she read it. Captain, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. The situation has gotten worse. The Rillian cruiser reports that this is not a raiding party. It is a full Krell battle group led by Warlord Grath. The name sent a cold feeling through the bridge. Warlord Grath was famous for his cruelty. He had destroyed entire colonies and left no survivors. If he was leading this attack, then the Rillians had no chance at all. Unless someone helped them. Gina gripped the arms of her chair. Time to arrival? 47 minutes, Captain. Then, we have 47 minutes to figure out how to beat a Krell battle group. She looked at Taiho. Commander, I need options. Taiho studied his screens. The Krell fight at long range. Their plasma cannons are devastating from a distance. But their ships are not built for close combat. If we can get close enough, we might have an advantage. Our armor can take more punishment than theirs, Yuna added. Human ships are built to survive. Krell ships are built to kill quickly, not to last long in a fight. Gina nodded slowly. A plan was forming in her mind. It was dangerous and possibly crazy, but it might work. We go in fast and hard, she said. We do not stop, we do not slow down. We hit them before they know what is happening, and we keep hitting them until they break. Her crew looked at her with a mixture of fear and hope. They trusted her. Now she had to prove that trust was not misplaced. The Defiant Hope raced toward the battle zone. One ship against many, carrying the hope of strangers and the courage of its crew. To be continued. The Defiant Hope dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Vexa system. The sight that greeted them was worse than anything the crew had imagined. Debris floated everywhere. Pieces of broken ships drifted through space like dead leaves on a dark river. Fires burned in the wreckage, fed by leaking oxygen tanks. The remains of 3 Rillian vessels spread across thousands of kilometers, marking where they had made their last stand. Captain Park Gina stood up from her command chair, her face hard as stone. Report. Ensign Han Murray worked her console with shaking hands. I am detecting 6 Krell warships in formation. They are surrounding 2 damaged Rillian vessels. 1 cruiser, designation Silver Dawn, and one civilian transport. Life signs on the transport? Over 2,000, Captain. Mostly civilians. Women, children, elderly. Gina felt her stomach tighten. 2,000 innocent people, trapped and waiting to die. Lieutenant Kim Yuna looked up from her weapons station. The Rillian cruiser is badly damaged. Their shields are down to 15%. They cannot last much longer. What about the Krell ships? Commander Lee Taiho answered that question. 6 warships, all in fighting condition. 2 destroyers, 3 frigates, and 1 command vessel. The command ship belongs to Warlord Grath. It is larger than the others with heavier weapons. Gina walked to the main viewport and stared at the distant battle. The Krell ships circled their prey like wolves around wounded deer. They were taking their time, enjoying the hunt. They knew the Rillians could not escape. Open a channel to the Rillian cruiser, Gina ordered. Myra's fingers danced across her console. Channel open, Captain. A face appeared on the main screen. It belonged to Admiral Velthos, a Rillian male with pale blue skin and large dark eyes. His uniform was torn and dirty, and green blood dripped from a cut on his forehead. Behind him, his bridge was filled with smoke and the sounds of warning alarms. This is Admiral Velthos of the Rillian vessel Silver Dawn, he said, his voice tired but dignified. Who are you? Captain Park Gina of the human warship Defiant Hope. We received your distress call. Velthos stared at her in disbelief. You came? One ship? One ship was all that was close enough to matter. The Admiral shook his head slowly. Captain, I thank you for your courage, but you must leave. There are 6 Krell warships here. You cannot fight them alone. You will only die with us. With respect, Admiral, we did not come here to watch you die. Gina's voice was calm but firm. How many people are on that transport? 2,347. Refugees from the border colonies. Children, families, the old and the sick. They have nowhere else to go. Then we will make sure they have somewhere to go. Gina turned to Taiho. Commander, take us in. Full speed. The Defiant Hope surged forward, its engines pushing hard. Chief Engineer Choi Doan's voice came over the intercom. Captain, the engines are running hot from the long jump. I can give you full power, but we will have problems later. Understood, Chief. We will worry about later when later comes. Myra looked up from her console with wide eyes. Captain, the Krell have noticed us. They are hailing. Put it through. A new face appeared on the screen. Warlord Grath was a massive creature with dark gray skin covered in ritual scars. His eyes were small and cruel, and his mouth was filled with sharp teeth. He wore heavy armor decorated with the symbols of his victories. Dozens of them. Human vessel, Grath growled, his voice deep and rough. You have entered a Krell hunting ground. Leave now, and you will be permitted to live. Stay, and you will die with these weaklings. Gina stood tall and faced the screen. Warlord Grath, this convoy is now under the protection of the human space navy. If you continue your attack, you will face the consequences. Grath laughed. It was an ugly sound, like rocks grinding together. Protection? One small ship offers protection against my battle group. You humans are new to the stars. You do not understand how things work out here. The strong take what they want. The weak die. That is the only law that matters. Then let me teach you something new. Gina's voice was cold. Humans do not abandon people who need help. We do not run from bullies. And we do not lose. The warlord's laughter stopped. His small eyes narrowed. Brave words from a dead woman. I was going to let you leave, but now I will destroy you first. Your ship will burn, and your crew will scream, and the galaxy will learn that humans are nothing. The screen went dark as Grath ended the transmission. Taiho looked at the captain. He is angry now. Angry enemies make mistakes. That is what I am counting on. Gina sat back in her command chair. All hands, battle stations. We are going in. The alarm rang through the ship. Crew members ran to their positions. In the engine room, Dohan shouted orders to his team. In the medical bay, doctors prepared for casualties. Throughout the ship, men and women made ready to fight. On the bridge, Yuna armed all weapons. Railguns loaded their first rounds. Missile tubes filled with deadly projectiles. The point defense systems came online, ready to shoot down incoming fire. Enemy ships are moving to intercept, Myray reported. 3 frigates coming at us from the left. 2 destroyers holding position near the convoy. Graf's command ship is staying back. He wants to watch, Taiho said. He thinks this will be easy. Then let us prove him wrong. Gina studied the tactical display on her armrest. Helm, adjust course. Take us between the frigates and the destroyers. We are going to split their formation. The Defiant Hope changed direction slightly, aiming for the gap in the Krell line. The 3 frigates tried to adjust, but the human ship was faster than they expected. Incoming fire! Myray shouted. Plasma bolts streaked through space toward them. The ship shook as the first shots hit the hull. Warning lights flashed on several consoles. Damage report, Gina demanded. Minor damage to outer hull sections 3 and 7, Taiho replied. Armor is holding. No breaches. Admiral Velthos appeared on a small screen near Gina's chair. His face was filled with concern. Captain, your ship is taking hits. Please, you have done enough. Save your crew. We're just getting started, Admiral. Gina pointed at the screen. Keep your ship between the transport and the Krell. We will handle the rest. More plasma fire hit the Defiant Hope. The ship rocked with each impact, but it kept moving forward. The Krell gunners were hitting their target, but the human ship refused to stop. Why are they still coming? Gina heard one of the Krell communications officers say over an intercepted channel. Our weapons are hitting them. That was the secret the Krell did not understand. Human ships were built differently. Other species designed their vessels for speed and firepower. They put everything into weapons and engines, leaving little room for protection. If their shields failed, they died quickly. Humans did not think that way. Human ships were covered in thick armor. Layer after layer of metal and composite materials designed to absorb damage. Human ships could take punishment that would destroy any other vessel. They were not elegant or beautiful. They were built to survive. Range to frigates? Gina asked. 2,000 kilometers and closing, Yuna answered. Her hands hovered over the firing controls. We are almost in optimal range. Hold fire until I give the order. Let them think their weapons are working. The frigates kept shooting. The Defiant Hope kept taking hits. The armor held. The ship kept going. 1,000 kilometers. 800, 500. Now, Lieutenant. Fire everything. Yuna pressed the controls. The Defiant Hope unleashed its fury. Railgun rounds tore through space at incredible speed. The first frigate never saw them coming. The rounds punched through its hull like needles through paper. The ship broke apart in a ball of fire. Missiles followed the railgun rounds. They spiraled toward the second frigate, dodging point defense fire with programmed evasion patterns. 3 missiles hit the engine section. The frigate spun out of control. Dead in space, the 3rd frigate tried to run. It was too slow. Another railgun volley caught it from behind, destroying its weapons array and leaving it helpless. 3 ships down in less than 30 seconds. On his command vessel, Warlord Grath watched in shock. This was not possible. One human ship had just destroyed 3 of his frigates in moments. His intelligence report said humans were primitive, weak, barely worth noticing. The reports were wrong. All ships, attack that human vessel. Grath roared. Destroy them now. The two destroyers moved to engage. They were larger than the frigates, with heavier weapons and stronger armor. But they had seen what happened to their companions. Fear was starting to creep into their crews. The Defiant Hope turned toward them, its hull scarred but unbroken. It was coming for them next. Admiral Velthos watched from his damaged bridge, unable to believe what he was seeing. One human ship was fighting a Krell battle group and winning. It was impossible. It was beautiful. It was hoped to be continued,